my name's Olivia. I'm one of the keepers here at Healesville, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of our wombats here named Gem. So she is a common wombat. There are 3 species of wombat. There's common wombats and there's 2 types of hairy nose. There's northern hairy nose and southern hairy nose. Common wombats tend to be a little bit larger than hairy noses. The hairy noses have bigger noses and they're also hairier. So Gem came to us when she was just a little joey, so she was just under 6 months old. Unfortunately, Mum had been hit by a car. So when that happens and kind people check the pouches, they're then brought in to care here and we need to hand raise them. So she was hand raised from just a little joey and she's grown to love her life here at Healesville Sanctuary. A lot of visitors sometimes think that she is lonely or sad because she's by herself. That is not the case. Wombats or common wombats are solitary, so they much prefer to live on their own. Even out in the wild, they would have their own territory and their own areas, and they would stay away from other wombats. The only time they would generally come together is for mating. Wombats do have 2 teats in their pouches. Which means that they can have 2 young at a time, but that's reasonably rare, generally just 1 at a time. And they do hang around their parents for quite a long time. It takes a long time for a wombat to raise a joey. The females are pretty much single mums in the wombat world. Once they do give birth to a tiny little joey about the size of a jelly bean, after about 33 days, the joey needs to climb up into mum's pouch and will attach to one of her teats, and that's where it will do all of its growing and developing. Roughly speaking, about 6 months full-time in the pouch. Hopefully by about 10 months they should be big enough and bold enough to be out on their own, but they'll still hang around with mum and still feed from her until they're around about 18 months old. They have some incredible claws on them, so they're mostly used for digging the burrows, which is where they live and where they'll spend their time throughout the day. Those claws are really quite strong, so they can use that as a defense mechanism. They also have a really strong bite on them. So wombat teeth are really strong. They're continually growing, so a little bit different to our teeth. But they need those really coarse teeth to be able to grind down and rip off lots of coarse grasses, which is their main diet. They also have what's called a cartilage plate on their bottom. So the back half of them is quite flat and quite straight. That cartilage plate doesn't actually have a lot of feeling in it. So what that means is they can use that to protect themselves against a fox or a predator. Generally what they'll do if there is a fox, they'll run into their burrow and they'll go about 1 metre or so in, and then they'll stop and they'll use that cartilage plate to block any predators from coming in. And because it's so firm, sometimes predators will run in, get a bit of a fright and move away. Or they can also use it to kind of squish whatever's trying to come above them against the roof of their burrow. Wombats have backwards facing pouches, so unlike a kangaroo or a wallaby where it kind of faces up more like a shopping bag, wombats have theirs backwards. So that's one of their adaptations, because wombats do dig and burrow so much. If they're digging all of the time, they'd be flicking dirt into their pouch if it was an upwards facing pouch. The only downside from a human perspective is that it looks a little bit strange when the joey's popping its head out of the pouch between mum's legs. Wombats have a pretty good defense of being able to run quite fast, up to about 40 k's per hour, which is up there kind of with your Usain Bolt and fast Olympic sprinters. But a little bit like a cheetah, they can only do it in short, sharp distances. Wombats have a somewhat square poo. It's not a perfect cube, but it's thought that they've evolved that way because they are territorial and they do mark their territory. They're able to mark in areas on the top of hills or on rocks without it actually rolling down and it not really marking their actual territory and kind of becoming useless. So next time you're here at the sanctuary, please come down and visit Gem down at Wombat Gully. I'm sure she would love to see you, and hopefully we'll see you soon.